LoLSquire. Bringing you info from the depths of emo hell. Hello everyone and welcome once again to LoLSquire. Today's video is going to bring an end to the three-part series about the meta. In our first video, we established a loose definition of what metagaming is and how it affects the game. Episode 2, which was titled What Makes a Pick Meta, talked about how the meta is decided and some of the ways it may be used to your advantage, as well as how to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to what the new meta may include. This video is for those who are trying new things and attempting to stay ahead of the curve. It's all about the off-meta pick. What is the off-meta pick? Well, since we established that the meta is basically what everyone else is doing, that naturally means off-meta is the opposite, and simply put, what no one or very few other players are doing. I aim to keep this video shorter than episode 2, so let's get to it. Are you playing Graves in the jungle on the new patch? Have you taken Cassiopeia top lane, AD Rengar in the bot lane instead of a marksman, or Master Yi mid lane? These are all examples of an off-meta pick, and despite how uncommon they are, they have their benefits and their downfalls. The newly discovered Graves jungle has the benefit of keeping the jungle camps off of him with his recently introduced knockback mechanic. This gives him a great advantage when it comes to sustain when compared to other junglers, as he simply doesn't take as much damage. Not in the sense that he has a high defense statistic, the monsters simply can't get close enough to him most of the time to hurt him. Coupling this with his AoE cone damage he produces with his auto attacks creates a viable yet overlooked pick for the jungle, which is why I would consider him off-meta. Every upside typically has a downside, and with his new double barrel reload mechanic, he just doesn't make that great of a jungler to siege with after he comes to your lane and helps you destroy your opponents. His attack speed, unless coupled with his dashing reload mechanic, takes too much of a hit. Cassiopeia top lane has the benefit of huge burst damage and the ability to stay very far away from her opponents with her spells. This is especially helpful against opponents without a true gap closing technique. People like Darius, Teemo, Singed, and other low mobility champions. She can still fare well versus gap closers once she has gained her ultimate, but if the enemy closes the space between you and themselves, she simply doesn't have the tankiness to escape or the time to hold them off. Replacing your marksman with someone like Rengar has the benefit of him being able to jump out of bushes and ambush unsuspecting supports or enemy marksmen, and seeing as marksmen are typically of the squishier nature, he can fare well in early trades. However, sacrificing a marksman ADC for a melee ADC can create problems later on in the match because of the constant need to be in the face of champions that are designed to kite and put out as much damage as possible. Unless Rengar can get in and slay his enemies within that small window of opportunity, they have the opportunity to escape him, and that causes issues securing kills. The same thing can go for Master Yi in the mid lane. However, if you're sacrificing an AP carry mid laner for an AD champion, this can present the enemy the opportunity to simply build armor, which can deny pressure later on in the game as your team is not as versatile as they would be with a utility control or burst mage. As you might be beginning to understand, off-meta does not necessarily mean weak or unviable. It simply means uncommon. So when should we stray away from the meta? Some of the best times to stray away from the meta are when you're either very comfortable with playing a champion, or when you know that champion is highly useful against a lane opponent you're anticipating seeing. For example, I will sometimes pick up Teemo in the jungle if I know the opposing jungler is highly auto-attack oriented, as Teemo's blind is useful to deny damage. Teemo is also useful in the jungle when you anticipate a lot of map movement or have little faith in your ally's ability to ward properly. His mushrooms can act as an extra way to control vision around the map or give assistance to ally laners without having to be in their lane at all times. The downside to Teemo is that his early clear is often quite weak and he struggles to clear the jungle, prior to getting a couple points into his poison darts. And if the enemy jungler can simply land on top of you, something like Jarvan 4, Elise, Gragas, or Sejuani, they'll simply kill you without giving you the chance to really do much to them. Also, an off-meta pick that I like, and which was popular before her rework, is full AP Soraka mid. She has great control with the silence on her E, and this can allow you to escape full combos from some mid laners, and she also has good poke and sustain with her Q. And you might be thinking, well, her W doesn't do any damage, how does that work? Well, from my perspective, and everybody typically has a reason behind why they pick the champions they do, your W is an amazing tool to allow your jungler to pressure your lane, and it almost always ensures a clean gank that either destroys an overconfident enemy mid laner, or zones them back to their tower or base, giving you the time to do what needs to be done to snowball. While I don't pick this champion much because of the nature of high mobility in the middle lane, people like Azir, LeBlanc, Zed, and Yasuo, among other token mid laners, can simply walk out of your E and dive right into you, I do consider this to be a pick that's pretty overlooked. As you can see by these examples, off-meta picks have their place on the Rift, and it simply takes a little bit of experience to figure out which picks play strongly into other picks. I'd like to recap very briefly what the past 3 videos were about. Meta is a loose term that describes what everyone else is doing and what works well. and it's dictated mostly by changes to items, champions, and map adjustments. Off-meta picks are picks that are not that common but can still see success when executed properly. In my next series, I will likely be covering what I've learned about patch 5.22's Marksman update and which champions are seeing the most success since their rework passes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, even if you just want to comment on how my voice is more annoying than a Teemo shroom. Thanks everybody, and go get on the rift. LoLSquire. Bringing you info from the depths of hell.